Having grown up watching the likes of Detective Conan, Doraemon, and Chibi Maruko-chan, the children's anime available to watch during the early 2000s was a totally different vibe to what we're getting today. However, out of all those shows, one series really stuck with me over the years, and that was Astro Boy. Astro Boy, or known as The Mighty Atom in Japan, is a manga series written by Osamu Tezuka. Originally serializing way back in the 50s to late 60s, it received a second anime adaptation around 2003, which I'm sure hit a decently large demographic of people in my generation, especially if you grew up watching anime. Over time, these characters had reached a level of what I would consider an iconic status, and despite originally being written in the 50s, Astro Boy remains a show I would say I was proud to grow up watching. Unbeknownst to me at the time in 2003, critically acclaimed manga artist and author of the titular manga series Monster, Naoki Urasawa had begun serializing a new manga that was based on Astro Boy, specifically adapting the Greatest Robot on Earth arc, naming the series Pluto after the arc's chief villain. In tandem with his writing style and the tone he likes to go for, Urasawa reinterpreted the charming children's manga into a suspenseful murder mystery that starred a robot detective trying to solve a case of a string of robot deaths. The general premise of Pluto stars Gashit, a Europol detective robot that gets wrapped up in a string of robot and human deaths around the world, where all victims were killed with objects either shoved into or positioned by their heads, imitating horns. As Gashit does more investigation, the plot thickens as evidence starts suggesting that a robot had committed these murders, which would make it the first time a robot had killed a human being in 8 years, which is even more surprising as these robots were specifically designed not to harm anyone, especially humans. One by one, all 7 of the greatest robots in the world, which happen to be some of the most scientifically advanced robots that had the potential to become weapons of mass destruction, start getting murdered, and all the human murders are related to those who wanted to preserve the international robot laws that grant robots equal rights with humans. As the show goes on, the anime delves into deeper themes of identity and one's sense of self, the dangers of rogue AI, and existential questions like what it truly means to be alive. Given the nature of the topics the anime covers, which involves highly intelligent AI systems that control robots that are almost indistinguishable to humans, I couldn't help but draw so many connections with Isaac Asimov's works while watching the show. This was extremely prevalent in the show's emphasis on robot laws, specifically the show's repeated mentioning of how a robot cannot injure a human being. This draws parallels to Asimov's laws, or more commonly known as the 3 laws of robotics, with the laws being: the first law, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. The second law, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And the third law, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Although I don't think there was that much emphasis on the third law in Pluto, the first and second law was definitely heavily prevalent in Pluto's world, with robots, although been given rights by humans, still are subject to a bit of discrimination due to the limitations of them being programmed in accordance to these laws. Similarly, there's a segment where Gashit starts having dreams about killing a human, which is later revealed that he actually did. After seeing this, I got flashbacks to the pain and suffering I went through during my high school literature classes having to read Asimov's Robot Dreams short story, which featured a robot dreaming about revolting and breaking the 3 laws of robotics, putting themselves on equal grounds with humans. At the end of the story, the robot that had the dream was immediately destroyed by the doctor who found out. Similarly, this happens in Pluto, except the higher-ups at Europol end up breaking international robot laws and tampered with Gashit's memories, effectively suppressing and attempting to delete them, as well as implanting fake memories to attempt to hide the fact that it ever happened. Another aspect the show touches on a lot is the idea of AI systems developing a sense of self. A lot of the times, especially the highly advanced robots, often wonder what it means to be human and imitate human behavior to the best of their ability. This happens with Adam eating food and saying it's delicious despite not really knowing why, or Gashit ordering coffee at a cafe despite the coffee not really affecting him at all. But in particular, I think the subplot story about the robot North No. 2 learning music from a famed composer who hated technology was one of the most interesting narratives out of the bunch with regard to this topic. North No. 2 was a robot that was designed with only war in mind, with his body outfitted with various weapons to dispatch any sort of threat. However, due to his participation in the 39th Central Asian War, he's developed some sort of PTSD and does not want to experience war ever again. In his story arc, he was hired as a butler to a famed composer who hated robots and any music-making technology, thinking that robots did not have true emotions and feeling that they could only just get more accurate or draw from predetermined algorithmically calculated melodies. Essentially, the composer thought that robots lacked the creativity that musicians needed to create works of art. Over time, North Number 2 expresses through various actions that he does actually have feelings, being one of the most advanced robots in the world. And the composer soon warms up to North Number 2. He learns to play the piano with the composer and develops a sense of humanity almost. In my opinion, this segment was, although quite touching, was also kind of scary when you think about the flip side. And this flip side was explored near the end of the show, where it was revealed that one of the chief antagonists, Professor Abula, was actually an AI robot all along, who was crafted by the famed Dr. Tenma himself, the doctor who built Adam. The fact that Abula's AI was built in a way where it was so perfect that it could lie to everyone, including itself, telling itself that it was human, was scary. It continues to beg the question of what if a robot got so good at imitating humans and believed itself to be a human, and can convince everyone it was a human, would the robot be human? What does it even mean to be human? Etc., etc. With AI in the real world growing at an insanely rapid pace at the moment, with large language models like ChatGPT taking the world by storm and sounding more and more human-like by the minute, I can't help but wonder if there's a small enough chance that something like what happened in Pluto could happen to us. It's a far stretch, and I don't really think it would happen, but the fact that there's a non-zero chance is just a tiny bit concerning. And that's Pluto. Definitely not an anime that's on the average watch list right now, but definitely an anime you deserve to watch.